Bitcoin hoard, purchasing 15,400 Bitcoin at about $95,000, $96,000 per Bitcoin for a total cost of $1.5 billion. The company's executive chairman tweeted, "We hodl more than 400,000 Bitcoin." Joining us now, Michael Saylor, MicroStrategy executive chairman. Your average, Michael, it's good to have you in studio again. Your average for those 400,000 is 58,000 per Bitcoin. So it's been moving higher as you keep buying at higher prices.
Well, welcome on in to another episode of Blue Chip Crypto. We're giving you the latest update on MicroStrategy. He just added some more Bitcoin to his portfolio. And like I said in this title, Bitcoin is projected to be worth in 2 decades, 20 years, because I played a long-term game, $13 million. If it keeps going at the rate that it's going currently, $13 million. So for every one that you don't have, it's 13 AMs that you do not have. Continue to watch, put on your seatbelt. It's time to take off.
We bought it about 42 times since August of 2020 to today.
From August of, and at this point, the strategy is to issue stock or convertible debt of MicroStrategy and use that to buy Bitcoin.
We're a Bitcoin treasury company, so we're securitizing Bitcoin. We're providing high performance equity. We're also providing convertible bonds. We've provided other kinds of bonds in the past, but primarily our job is to bridge the traditional capital markets that want bonds, or they want fixed income, or they want equity, or they want options. And we plug that into the crypto economy, and we use Bitcoin as the vehicle to do that.
What percentage of the public do you think understands Bitcoin at this point? Because I don't know if it helps to go into your strategy.
Most people do not understand it. It's about at a 1% as far as the global standpoint. And when people may get to understand it, is at a 7%. But you also have BlackRock. Hold on, Michael said, I can answer this question for you. You also have BlackRock, all of these big time hedge funds, Grayscale, the United States that want a part of it now. You have companies like Tesla that have it on their balance sheet. Apple will have it on their balance sheet. Google will have it on their balance sheet, because it's the way of the future. And this is actually a way not to pay taxes when you really think about it, right? So that's the answer. But let's continue. Let's see what Michael have to say.
What you just tweeted about, if people don't even understand Bitcoin, and I still see it everywhere, that it's air, or that it's not like gold because you can't make jewelry out of it. Believe it or not, still people saying that because you can't touch it, that it can't be real and it can't represent money. So can we go into how you're arbitraging it to make a return?
Yeah, here's what you need to know.
Okay.
The S&P is about 15 ARR for the past 4 years, and the volatility of the S&P is 15.
Okay.
If you want to own a commodity like silver or soybeans or gold, they have very, very low performance, less than 15%, 5%, 0%. You don't really want to hold soybeans for 100 years. And sometimes they have volatility, but it doesn't last that long. Bitcoin is 60 volatility, 60 ARR, and it is a legal commodity, but it is an economic scarcity. It is the only commodity invented in the history of the human race that's absolutely capped. And so that means you can expect it to keep going up. If I can give you a commodity that outperforms the S&P index, if I can give you a commodity that's more volatile than the S&P index, you can put 100% of your liquid assets in that commodity per SEC rules. I can't do it with a security, by the way. So up until Bitcoin, people had to use gold or real estate as their commodity, or they have to use the US Treasury bill. Those are all underperforming the S&P, and they're less volatile. Bitcoin is the first thing you can use in your treasury that's more volatile, that outperforms the S&P. The result is, if I give you a security, Joe, that outperforms the S&P, how much of it do you want to buy?
A lot of it.
And if you're an ARB or an options trader, and I give you an option that is 4x the volatility of the S&P, or with MicroStrategy, we're 10x the volatility of the S&P, how much of it do you want to trade? So Bitcoin's unique in the history of the capital markets. It's the first scarcity commodity, outperforming the S&P, more volatile than the S&P that you can put on your balance sheet.
Volatility at sometimes is not always a good thing. I mean, it's great when something's going higher. But don't think that there'll be a drop or a significant drop that comes along? Have we moved past that because of the regulatory changes that have taken place?
I think it'll remain volatile because it's a 24/7, 365 global asset. You can panic sell it on Saturday night. You can enthusiastically buy it on Sunday morning. That's a feature. Mm-hmm. That's not a bug.
Yeah, you've lived through some of the swings, but do you think we won't see the downturns like we've seen in the past just because of the changes we've seen?
I think it's going to surge through the roof, and then it's going to surge to 180 and crash to 140, and people will be freaking out about it again. But let me make this one analogy. Volatility is like fire, and some people run away from the fire, but Henry Ford put the fire into a carriage via an engine, created an entire industry, and he gave humanity wings.
Can we talk about, so I've been leading up to for me and for everybody to understand your tweet just from, I think.
That was a great analogy. So instead of you being like the cow who run away from the storm, right, and ultimately get drenched and wet, won't you be like the bull that run towards it, right, like Henry Ford, and actually come out of the other end of the storm and actually become even greater? So Bitcoin, you can come out at the other end and be greater. To me, it's the only thing that you can really, in this lifetime, you can really own and say, hey, this is worth something. It's worth more than the US dollar. It's a technology that you invested in, right? You can pass it on down to your kids. It creates generational wealth. It will always, let's just say that, yes, it has a lot of volatility, but volatility, great risk, the greater the reward. So the question is, are you willing to take the risk, or are you willing to be dormant? Your choice. Blue chip crypto is willing to take the risk because the financial system as we know it, the 100 years already passed if you study money. So if the 100 years already passed, this is the new innovation. It's not massively accepted yet, but it will be. Trust me.
In the last hour. So what did you do last week with the treasury operations? You were able to generate a Bitcoin yield of 2.55% or over almost 10,000 Bitcoin to shareholders using an arbitrage. Can you explain? Will I be able to understand this if you explain this?
We sold $1.5 billion worth of stock, backed by $500 million worth of Bitcoin. We bought back $1.5 billion of Bitcoin. We captured nearly $1 billion gain in the arbitrage. That we can do with equity day by day. When we do it with debt, we issue $3 billion of debt that's backed by 600 million of Bitcoin that comes due in 5 years. We pay 0% interest. We buy $3 billion of Bitcoin. We capture the $2.4 billion in the arbitrage gain up front. But then over the course of the 5 years, we double or we quadruple the investment because we're buying an asset which is appreciating faster than the S&P.
What you told me was that it's 55% premium over conversion, but a zero coupon. Is that?
That was a zero coupon 55. Yeah. And you can do that because Bitcoin is high vol, and the companies that have Bitcoin on their balance sheet have even higher volatility. So Mara is a great example. 2 weeks ago, they did $1 billion convert, zero coupon to buy Bitcoin. This week, they're back in the market doing another $1 billion convert, zero coupon to buy Bitcoin. You can rinse and repeat that frequently.
Yeah, I hear that. You can rinse and repeat the same method and the same strategies that he's telling you frequently. So borrow the US dollar, right? Which then can lead you directly to do the same process and repurchase Bitcoin again over and over and over and over again until you hit your ceiling. Your ceiling may be different from his ceiling, right? So let's continue to get some more coverage on this.
Correctly, that we are in the fourth industrial revolution. Now, investors, in fact, reminded today, well, every time you peek in your portfolio, but particularly today, right? You look at the top performing names in today's session. At the top of the list, Salesforce.com is surging. Now, here's the thing. It's all about AI, and just earlier this year, Salesforce.com, the stock got hammered because they were falling behind. They had no real AI vision that the street could see. Down at 1.16% on the year. Now it's up over 40% on the year. And I got to tell you, I continue to marvel at these managers that have sort of written off the notion of a fourth industrial revolution and the key components from AI to Bitcoin and the blockchain. I got to tell you something. I am a natural born Luddite. If I always tell people, if I was around when Net Ludd was around, I would have been breaking up weaving machines too. But I know that these moments have several things in common. That ultimately humankind enjoys richer existence because of the driven visionaries. But it's never an easy transition, and it's never without controversy. Today, we have two of those visionaries with us that the world will be talking about 100 years from now. Sam Altman later on in this show, and Michael.
All right, so this, I believe I covered in one of my other videos. We're going to take this one down. Let's stop sharing the screen. Let's take this one down. And now let's go to, I wanted to show you a recent update. And this was with, what's this, Fox 5? So let's share that screen. Put a 1 in the chat if you can see the screen. Put a 1 in the chat if you can see the screen. Bitcoin is king. So what do you think XRP is? If Bitcoin is king, what would you render XRP to be? Let's go.
Not just one, but multiple strategic locations, such as Greenland and the Panama Canal. Here with us now, Anthony Popliano, professional capital management founder and CEO. And you say he should also be looking at buying as much Bitcoin as possible. Why?
Well, if you think about what he's trying to do here, right, is he's basically looking at strategic reasons to acquire physical property in order to advance the American ideals, ethos, and strategies. Well, what about the digital world? We live in a digital world. And so if you're going to go after the Panama Canal, there's obviously strategic reasons to do that. Greenland as well. Owning Bitcoin is digital real estate. There's only 21 million that will ever exist. We know other countries are mining, buying, holding Bitcoin. And so are we going to let these other countries be the leader, or are we going to be the leader? And I think that's really the decision they have to make.
What do you say to people who say it has had a massive run? It's, mentally, it's difficult to kind of get on board at these levels when we know where it's been. And we've also seen that volatility. Somebody very smart told me, well, take 2% and just money that, you're willing to risk and put it in. I still find that difficult to do.
If you go back to the 1980s or 1990s, buying the S&P 500 was real scary, but you were a genius if you did it in hindsight. And so same thing here with Bitcoin is you can look backwards and see how high it rose. But if you look forward and say, well, if this continues, which we have every reason to believe it will, buying today is the second best time to buy because the first best time was yesterday. And if we keep waiting, it's only going to get worse and worse. And so I think
I hear you. It's hard to pull the trigger.
Of course. And that's true of all financial assets, right? I mean, think of a real estate market. If people will go and they'll say, oh, my God, I could have bought 5 years ago. Now it's at this price. I just can't wrap my head around that. Well, if you wait 5 more years, the dollar is going to continue to be devalued. And so usually if you decide, hey, I want to own something, go ahead and buy it.
Anthony, crypto investors and crypto companies are obviously very excited about a Trump presidency. We now know that Coinbase, Kraken, Ripple, and MoonPay have all donated money to the Trump-Vance inauguration. What does the Trump-Vance time in office over the next 4 years, what has that done to their trajectory of where Bitcoin could go?
Well, I think about 50% of the value they bring to the table has already been captured because really it was just awakening America to this idea that technology is good, business is good, free markets are good, capitalism is good. Bitcoin is the most free market asset that we have. And so out of nowhere, we went from a world where I think a lot of people were saying, hey, is the future actually brighter than the past? To now they're saying, oh, wait a second, we are going to put business-oriented people into the White House and into the administration. Let's go, right? And so you hear things like it's morning in America, people saying it's time to build, et cetera. Now, what I do think is interesting about these businesses is it's actually showing not that crypto is different, it's that crypto companies are the same as non-crypto companies. If you look at Amazon and Facebook and many others, they're also donating $1 million to this inauguration fund. And so it used to be a world where there was kind of like the adults in the room and then the crypto little kids were playing kind of in the corner. But now all of a sudden you're realizing that these crypto companies are showing up and they're saying, look, we are no different than these big multi-billion-dollar, $100 billion companies. We also are going to donate. We have a seat at the table. And so it's really crypto growing up more than it is these other people.
Does that mean he has to create a strategic Bitcoin reserve or else they turn on him?
I do think that that is a potential risk. And so, look, if you look at the administration, Trump owns Bitcoin and crypto. J.D. Vance owns Bitcoin, I believe. There's a lot of people in the administration. You just go through all the different roles that they've appointed people. And so these are Bitcoiners to a degree, or crypto holders that are going into the office. They're likely to go ahead and buy.
Well, they're going to get criticized for that.
They may get criticized for it, but also if you look at it right now, what is the United States doing? We're buying bonds. We're holding other assets. We have a president that's currently in office, and also politicians who are literally day trading assets.
Yep.
And so it's no different, right? I think the big story of 2025 is going to be that crypto has now grown up and is part of the traditional financial system. And there's pros and cons to that, but now we have a seat at the table. You saw that in the political arena in terms of donations and influence, but you also now are going to see it in the financial arena, and that is going to be a huge tailwind, I think, for Bitcoin and crypto in 2025.
Does that include all crypto, or are we talking more Bitcoin when we talk about crypto?
I think that Bitcoin is the king. It will remain the king. I think that most of the capital flows from the traditional world are going into Bitcoin. There are going to be other assets that enter into the market. You obviously see the ETH ETF got approved. You'll probably see others that get approved as well. But the argument for anything other than Bitcoin is a very different one. That is a technology argument. Yes. It's no different than trying to pick between Amazon and Google and Facebook. The Bitcoin argument is much more akin to, do I want to protect my purchasing power? It's digital gold. And so that argument to me is much more reasonable for the government to say, hey, we're going to go and we're going to put this in our reserves. I don't think that the United States wants to get in the game of trying to pick tech winners or losers based on, the allocation of capital.
Do you have a one-year target for us on Bitcoin, with and without the Bitcoin reserve?
With or without, we're going higher. I don't necessarily have a price, but I do think that if we go ahead and buy Bitcoin, what's interesting is we will not be the first country to do this. There's a lot of other countries who have already bought, they're mining, they're holding Bitcoin. What I do think is important, though, is America is the greatest capital market in the world. And so if America does it, it pretty much reduces all of the career risk, all of the critiques for all these other countries. And so, Russia recently came out and they said, hey, we're mining Bitcoin, we're starting to use it in transactions. People are like, oh, that's Russia, we kind of don't like them, and so they're kind of in the corner. People look at El Salvador and they're like, oh, that's El Salvador. I couldn't point it out on a map.
But if they're doing it, it makes more of a case if your enemies are doing it that you should be.
Well, look, the United States took a pretty drastic action in terms of the sanctions that they went after individuals, country, and also took some of the Russian assets and said, hey, we're going to give to the Ukrainian people. When that happened, Bitcoiners came out and they said, you are actually going to further accelerate the demise of the U.S. dollar because now you have introduced this sanctions risk. There was a paper that came out of the Harvard Economics Department where they talked about, will countries now start to buy Bitcoin, not for price, not for the sovereignty, but actually as a sanctions hedge?
Russia.
And so Russia is actually doing that. Yes. Do you think they're the only one?
No.
I wouldn't bet on it.
I will say someone on this program on the network said
to me, that is one of the benefits of actually owning cryptocurrency, right? If they try to close down your bank accounts, that's why I like decentralization. Remember what they did to those people that decided to do the riot as far as for the transportational system that was coming in. And if you did the riot, they shut down your bank account. That's the truckers riot. If they had Bitcoin, they wouldn't have worried about their bank accounts being shut down. If they had decentralized technology or decentralized money, they wouldn't have to worry about the bank accounts being shut down because you don't own. You don't have to put it in your bank account. You can actually have it on your ledger, right? That the government cannot stop, and you control your money. So therefore, you don't think other nations are going to put it on their balance sheet just in case they get sanctions just to hedge against sanction? I think that's the part of owning your own money rather than being controlled by a centralized system. This is why I'm all for crypto and cryptocurrency. I'm for the decentralized part. Now, you do have some currencies that centralize, but that's the currencies that I don't like. I'm not saying that I'm not going to make money off of these currencies, but as far as where I'm holding my largest bag, it's going to be on decentralization. smash that like button. I hope you guys enjoyed this audio reaction. Leave your thoughts down below. Subscribe to the channel. That's all I ask. Hit that bell notification for another update. And on that note, I want you guys to have a good day. Buckle your seatbelt. It's time to take off. We're headed to the moon.